football. Monday Night Football. Come on. This was a sick week in the world of betting. Welcome back. Sports Gambling with Moneyline Monaco. I'm your host, Alex Monaco. Talking all things Monday Night Football. The Battle of the Birds. Kirk Primetime and the Falcons. Fly up to Philly. Fly, Eagles, fly. Where the Eagles are at the moment, pending where you shop. 5.5-point favorites. We're going to be brief with this because this is a game I sit here and I'm overthinking it already. But we're coming off an NFL Sunday that was hard to even comprehend. Falcons plus 5.5, plus 184 on the money line. Over, under 45.5. Juice more to the under at minus 115 than to the over, minus 105. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review. Goes a long way. If you're enjoying yourself, fading, following, laughing, trolling. Holy Mac, you want to do this for a living as a host at least? Go to my comment section to double down. All right, let's talk storyline narratives before I get into where I'm leaning, what I'm picking. And, I was 2-3 against the spread for my best bets in week 2. And I've been off a little bit on the prime times. I hit my first 2 prime times, lost my next 2. Did take the Eagles minus 2.5 in Brazil against the Green Bay Packers. And that was a sweat, huge sweat. Now we look ahead here as the Falcons come off a loss in a really perplexing type game, 18-10. Now, we're already removed from a second Steelers win. So we're sitting here looking at Pittsburgh being a top 3 defense through 2 weeks. Win against Kirk, win against the Broncos. Teams barely given up any points. But this is a league that we watched. The Ravens lose to the Raiders. The Bucs beat the Lions in Detroit. The Cowboys got smoked by the Saints, and the Vikings beat the Niners. And that's just underdog, outright victories against heavy favorites, not to mention more of the minutia in the weeds of week 2, which was just utter debauchery. If we're talking about this week being a one-off, and we come into this game, and A.J. Brown's out, big news, 6 points down to 5.5. Now looking at tickets and splits, because I'm looking and scouring the market just to see where people are. And right now, per the Action Network, at the 5.5-point line with the 45.5-point over-under, according to their pro service. And this is coming at you about 5 hours to game time. So close. 52% of the bets to 48 on the Eagles side, swallowing the 5.5, but 66% of the money coming in on the Eagles plus 14% differential. So if you're going off of that alone, you're sitting there watching more money than tickets as far as the differential percentage going towards Philly. Now we go to the total. 56% of all bet slips on the under, 62% of the money on the under. Now, you had 2 completely stylistically different games in week 1 for these 2 clubs. You had an 18-10 easy under in week 1 that I believe closed. We'll double check here at 42.5. It did in the Steelers Falcons. We had a 2.5-point Eagles favorite over under 49.5. Philly almost got there on their own, baby. 34-29, 49.5. Now, let's talk out what we saw in this new Vic Fangio defense going against Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur, and all things Packers. I'm sitting here, and Jordan Love didn't have a great completion percentage. Had an interception he otherwise wouldn't. Josh Jacobs, who had 200-plus yard outings last year, rushed pretty serviceably at 5.3 a clip, a little over 80 rush yards in that game. But for me, Packers didn't convert third downs, which was huge, but 414 yards of offense, and more importantly, 163 rush yards. 163 rush yards. You got to remember, Emmanuel Wilson bursting onto the scene, 4 for 46, and Jaden Reed had a 33-yard run. So to say that they didn't get pushed around, and we're talking about 7.8 yards per carry. You want to talk about EPA allowed per handoff in week 1? Philly was 31st. This team looked like, now the field was awful. Mario Kart banana peels all over. Will Levis mayonnaise all over. Stick with the Mario Kart line. People were slipping and sliding. Knock on wood, it could have been way worse in Brazil. So you sit there, you're like, all right, was that Philly's defense and who they're going to be again? Or is this Philly's defense, dealing with travel, a crappy field, and a pretty otherwise locked in, knows their personnel very well, Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love offense? And you take that and you factor in what the Falcons did against the Steelers week 1. And Bijan took 89% of snaps, 18 carries, 68 yards. Falcons only ran 50 total yards. But look, 2 interceptions for Kirk non-primetime, a fumble, 2 for 9 on third down. You're just not going to beat many teams in that regard. Now, Philly, as home favorites, under Jalen Hurts, pretty solid. They're 16-3 straight up and 11-6-2 against the spread. That's since 2021. But I have questions about this Philadelphia defense. And we're talking about A.J. Brown, who had almost a 30% target share against the Packers. Now, the Packers, a little bit different than the Falcons if we're going off last year. Softer run D, better pass D. This Falcons secondary was the liability. You go out, you get a couple of pieces, Judon being one of them. Another key piece, I think Justin Simmons, don't overlook, free safety, and Jesse Bates is now on this team for a second year. There's a couple players on this Atlanta Falcons defense, and as much as you want to sit there and go, they had 10 points, and Kirk looks like a voluntary tuck in the shirt, cul-de-sac quarterback off his plant foot Achilles, the defense looked pretty good. Now, Pittsburgh's not known for their offense around here. But the reality is, that was a 5 field goal, 1 touchdown entire game. So if this game plays to the under, which I lean 45.5, and you take in what you saw week 1 to week 2, you saw a lot of uncertainty. You didn't see a lot of great from teams that looked good in week 1 that also looked good in week 2. Matter of fact, you saw almost none. Now, Kirk is terrible in primetime football. He's 12-20 in his career. All right. I'm looking at it right here. 3-10 on Monday night, including a 9-game streak of 9 straight L's. But I'm seeing he's won 3 of his last 4 on Monday night. That's an ESPN source. And he went against the Eagles in Philly last year. 6-point L. But he lit it up. 31 completions. At an 8.3 per clip, 4 tutty, no interception, 125.6 QBR outing. Now, they got to improve without hesitation what this Robinson coordinated led offense is going to be. Zach Robinson, the man who comes from the Rams under the McVay tree, is here, and he's got to double down on what he does, what he has assets-wise, and what he can do well for this club. The only way they cover tonight is they have to run the freaking football. And if you saw Josh Jacobs, Jaden Reed, and this entire Green Bay Packers rushing attack, you have to stick to a formula. Do not put Kirk in a rowdy Philly environment in 3rd and longs. They're going to be cooked. Bell cow back. This is actually a game I think you can pick a lot of props off. I actually like props more than I like a side. But as you're starting to hear me build this argument, I can't say that Philly is 6 points better than anybody. Now, we're in an overreacting Monday tilted spot here, but you're talking about a defense that allowed almost 8 yards per carry, that allowed pretty much Jordan Love to have all day back there in a lot of instances. Now, he's certainly more of an athlete, not even a conversation, than Cousins is. But if we're going off of just 1 week and we're going off of the splits and the eye test, look, if Cousins' Achilles is cooked, we're cooked. We're done. Crack a Snapple by halftime, call your lady friend, and let's watch some, I don't know what, something to take our mind off it. But if Kirk Cousins hangs in there, if they stick to the run with Bijan, and Bijan has an ability to be special tonight, they got more than a shot to come in and right some wrongs. And this is kind of Atlanta Falcons football. They lose games they shouldn't. They win games they have no business winning. Kirk Cousins is a gamer. He is a competitive lad. He doesn't like to lose. I know he looks like a nice dad who voluntarily tucks in his shirt on a Sunday barbecue. He's got a little DOG, but 58 plays to 74 plays in this Packers-Eagles round 1, where Fangio didn't really look like he has this defense completely locked in, and a Jordan Love 34 pass attempt game, that's not even really Packers style. They should have stuck to the run a little more. But the second to worst EPA play defense without their number 1 wide receiver on a 30% just under target share from last week. We're talking about Jahan Dotson, brand new to the club from Washington. We're talking about Goddard having to step up. This is not a crazy pass catching dude. And all on Devontae Smith with a decent, at least improved Atlanta secondary from week 1. Didn't look great, but if Kirk doesn't turn the ball over and they can eat up the clock and they can run the ball serviceably, they're going to be in this game. It's just how the cookie crumbles. So I'm going to lean Philly plus 5.5. I'm taking Falcons plus 5.5. And I'm going to lean under 45.5. But let's go to the prop market real quick, because I do think there is some value. I got a call. Shout out my friend Anita Marks, does great work. ESPN Bet talking out the year. Jahan Dotson's one of her favorite. I looked at him, non-existent in week 1, but moving up the depth chart week 2 with a spot here at 28.5 receiving yards to potentially go over. Now, I think Dotson's got a shot to do something in this game, but 1 target last week doesn't give me a ton of confidence. I do think on the Falcon side of things, if you look at the target share from week 1, and again, Cousins is just trying to figure out his rapport. Obviously, we know Drake London, 2 catches, 3 targets, wasn't going to get it done. But Ray McCloud led the team in targets, second in receptions, first in receptions for receivers last week at 27.5 receiving yards. Has to be in the conversation. Now, I'm not even sure Cousins is intimidated of this defensive secondary right now. If anything, Jalen Carr is the biggest showstopper in this defensive unit, and there is no man named TJ Watt in this dance. I think Drake London, if you wanted to buy low on him, but he's at 60.5 receiving yards, I'm looking to Goddard as one of my favorite receiving outings in this game at 43.5. I think Devontae Smith over 5.5 receptions, though it's juiced pretty gross, is probably as good as you're going to feel about anything. Everyone seems to be all over Saquon, sure. And I think it's a Bijan Robinson night. If I'm picking 3 props, I'm picking Bijan to score a touchdown. I'm playing it solo. I'm taking Ray McLeod over 27.5 receiving yards. And I think I got a nibble on Goddard over 43.5. I mean, there's no reason why Hurts shouldn't be working the ball kind of like a point guard on, maybe a 3-4 game or a 4-game week slate in the NBA where he's, man down, not a normal starting lineup, a la no A.J. Brown. You got to really facilitate the rock. Ball movement's huge. Get your known assets involved. And there's no one he knows better than Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. And if we don't build that up, Dotson and Barkley, he's still establishing rapport with. Now, there could be a sneaky play, even though Jalen doesn't love dishing the rock to running backs historically, unless it's a change of pace back like a Gainwell who comes in or a Boston Scott throwback BS. I look at 18.5, I probably snub on it. But to wrap it up without rambling, I think this is a game where you're getting maybe a good timing spot here for this Falcons club, just off a terrible week 1. No one thinks Robinson and Cousins have any continuity. They're not sure what they're going to do. You got a ruckus Philly environment. You got a lot of question marks. But I look at that Phillies defense, and I don't see a ton that I feel great about, and I don't think they should be laying 6 points, 5.5 points against anyone. I'm going to take the Dirty Birds, Dion's old squad, 5.5, under 45 and a hook. Definitely will be throwing out an SGP. I'm leaning Ray McLeod, Goddard, both on receiving yards over, and Bijan anytime touchdown. If this Falcons defense shows up a little, there's going to be some live betting opportunities here. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review. Appreciate you listening. Goes a long way. We're out of here. Let's go Falcons. +5.5.